Android offline horror games seem endless. The reason is, fans of horror games are not small. So the developers also release horror games quite often every year. For the game mechanism, usually horror games are combined with puzzle elements. So, in this video, we have summarized a number of horror games that are worth trying on your Android phone. Immediately, here are 10 best offline Android horror games 2021 which are very exciting to play. As the title suggests, this game is the second chapter of the game Demons Never Lie. This game tells a horror story in an interesting storyline. The story of this game tells the character of Peter. He is a teenager who must face a terrible fate in life. Peter himself is the reincarnation of a character named John who was presented in the first chapter. The gameplay of this game is packed with a point-and-click gameplay mechanism. Later, there will also be additional puzzle elements to be solved. The block-style graphics presented by this game can be quite gripping. Because it presents story elements, of course you will like this game if you are looking for a horror game that focuses on the story. Not much different from the previous game, the second series of the Smiling X game also tells the continuation of the story that began in the first series. The story of the first series itself ends after escaping from the creepy studio. Well, in this follow-up series, you are required to fight back and discover the secret behind the X Corporation. The gameplay of this game combines horror and survival elements. In this series, you will also be faced with new enemies not found in the previous series. Throughout the game, you also have to solve a number of puzzles provided. To solve the puzzle, you are required to find a number of items that match the problem at hand. Erich Sann is a horror game that has an escape game mechanism with additional puzzle elements. In the game, you have to explore a large and abandoned music academy. Later you will enter various areas, including the basement. But it's not that easy, you will also be faced with a crazy old musician named Erich Sann. Not only the musician, there are other terrifying creatures too. The gameplay in this game itself will be done in several different difficulty levels. You can play with passive enemies or even sensitive enemies. Later, every sound you make will bring enemies. The Longest Night is a horror adventure game that will take you to a long night. The story of this game tells the story of a person who wakes up in a small room that is very tense. When he woke up, he lost his memory and did not remember what had happened to him. As players, you are assigned to help the character find out what really happened. When carrying out an investigation, you will be presented with a tense home environment. Besides that, you also have to survive a serial killer. A number of elements in this game are actually quite well presented. One of the drawbacks is that the game controls are still not very smooth. Although this game can be played for free, the full version must be played by making a purchase. When he woke up, he lost his memory and did not remember what had happened to him. As players, you are assigned to help the character find out what really happened. When carrying out an investigation, you will be presented with a tense home environment. Besides that, you also have to survive a serial killer. A number of elements in this game are actually quite well presented. One of the drawbacks is that the game controls are still not very smooth. Although this game can be played for free, the full version must be played by making a purchase. Unlike some of the previous games, this game called Goozy from FGTeev comes with a more casual horror concept. In the game, you will become a ghost hunter equipped with his signature weapon. Interestingly, the ghosts in this game are more like colorful slime monsters. You can defeat these monsters by using a special gun that has been available since the beginning of the game. The goal that you must complete on your own is to find a lost family. The loss of the family was due to the phenomenon of the slime monster attacking. The gameplay that is presented in this game is arguably quite easy and simple. But later on, you will also be faced with puzzle elements that must be solved. METEL Horror Escape is a horror game that is combined with an escape game mechanic. This game is quite successful in packing a game that is both gripping and entertaining. Your own task is to escape and survive a maniac. Later, you will start the game locked in a room. In order to escape, there are a number of puzzles that must be solved in order to find a way out. What makes it difficult? You have to make sure you don't make the maniac suspicious. The reason is, you will be killed if the maniac realizes an attempt to escape. Interestingly, there are several characters with different stories that you can play. Well, this game will be suitable if you like horror survival games with additional puzzle elements. The Second Death Park tells the story of an older brother who tries to save his younger sister. The soul of the younger brother has been kidnapped by the clown Pennywise. Therefore, you will try to face this nightmare. In the game, you will follow the storyline offered. There are up to 8 different endings that you can get in this game. Later, you have to solve each unique puzzle in a number of locations. What's interesting about this game is that you can move from the real world to the dream world. In the world of dreams, the nuances it presents have turned tense. You must do this world transfer to solve each puzzle. Antarctica 88 is a survival horror game with a fairly unique setting. The reason is, you are required to survive in the cold ice of Antarctica. In the game, you will be presented with a scary sci-fi story. Along the way, there are many dangerous monsters that you must face. The story begins with an ice drilling expedition in search of historical items. Unfortunately, the expedition turned into a disaster. The expedition team members could not be contacted. You will also become a rescue team and find out what happened. In this effort, you can do a number of things, from exploring, solving puzzles, collecting various items needed, and fighting monsters. Ark Forest tells the story of a female blogger who is curious about a horror story in a mysterious place. Later, this game provides various story plots that have been provided by the developer. For now, there are 2 story plots that you can follow, namely the Baba Yaga and Slenderman stories. Each of the stories also presents a different nuance. As a horror-themed game, this game has presented a very neat graphic presentation. The nuance that is presented also feels very tense. Because it has good quality, this game also has a size that is quite large, which is around 600 megabytes. Not only a matter of graphics, this game has a back sound that can support a horror atmosphere to be even scarier. With the nuances and various support for these tense elements, this game will certainly be very suitable to be played when you are alone at night. As one of the Android offline horror games with quite complete features, COLINA Legacy is certainly still an interesting game to try. Quite different from most of the horror games on this list, this game comes from a third-person perspective. In the game, you will play a character named Alex. The story begins when Alex wakes up at his grandmother's house. But strangely, everyone left mysteriously and where they were. For that, you have a duty to help Alex out of his grandmother's house. But it's not that easy. You have to go through the night accompanied by various tense elements of horror. The horror atmosphere presented by this game is quite good. The combination of visuals and audio makes this game quite tense. Not much different from other similar games, you will be faced with a number of puzzles. Even though it is quite promising, this game still has a number of bugs in the game.